Are you a coach that struggles with practice planning? Are your practices repetitive and boring? Are they filled with 8 kids standing around watching 2 kids work on things while the rest get in trouble for not paying attention? We're not going to beat Fortnite that way. Our kids will quit and find something better to do. Our practices must be engaging and enjoyable, especially at the younger ages. When they're older, the practices still have to be engaging, but they can be more focused and disciplined. Either way, they need to be planned or these goals will not be met. So how to do that? Here are some suggestions. Before we jump into the nuts and bolts, we need to talk about long-term planning and short-term planning. What is your goal in coaching? If you want to take the time and answer that question, feel free, you can. But I'll give you 3 goals you might have. 1, you want them to have an opportunity to play high school baseball. 2, you want them to love and enjoy baseball. And 3, you want them to learn skills that will help them in life. And once you have your long-term goals planned, we can talk about short-term goals. What are you trying to accomplish this season? And this is going to be age specific. In T-ball and coach pitch, you want them to focus on playing catch, fielding ground balls, what base to throw to, getting the lead runner. You want them to run bases well, know what to do on a fly ball, know when they're forced to go to the next base and when they're not. Then when kid pitch starts at 8 or 9, you have to work a lot on pitching, throwing strikes. Hitting also changes. Teach them how to step in the box, use the on-deck circle, understand the difference between an 0-2 count and a 2-0 count. Defense needs to be ready every pitch, which is difficult at this age. At 11 and 12, we're starting to look like a baseball team. Holding runners, double plays, bunts, bunt coverages, first and third plays. For ages 13 through 15, you're trying to get them ready for high school baseball. They don't want their career to be over, so it's your job to work on each kid specifically. Does he need a better arm? Does he play catcher only for you? And he's walking into a tryout where there are 3 other catchers, all better than him, also trying out? So as we move forward in looking at planning an individual practice, all of these factors are in our mind. So what do we do in an individual practice? Well, I need to break this down in about 3 different areas. Now, I promise you we're going to look at some practice plans. We're going to look at off-season practices, preseason practice, and in-season practice. The first is off-season practice, and this, depending on your location, is about October through December. This is a chance for you to go over the fundamentals. This may be how to square up on a ground ball, how to catch with 2 hands. It could be a double play pivot. Whatever you find is a good option for fundamentals. This would also be a great time to do some strength and speed training. Add mobility to it as well. Often, the off-season is cold and wet and you're indoors. If you can find about 100 square feet, you can do some kind of stretching or bodyweight exercises or even some speed ladders. Throwing will depend on your space and individual needs of the players. Your best pitcher who threw 50-plus innings in the spring, he may need to take a break in the fall. Your 14-year-old second baseman who throws 53 miles an hour, he needs to throw. He needs to work on his arm strength. There's a risk of overusing their arm, but there's also a risk of not being good enough. If your kids go to a high school where freshmen are cut, if the velocity doesn't get up to par, his career is over. It's not a good time to take a break from throwing. Instead, you need to let it rip and take a few months to focus on velocity. Either way, a good band routine needs to be developed for all players, kid pitch and above. If possible, you can do some base running drills like taking leads and reading a pitcher, working on jumps and secondary leads. You could also use this time for a chalk talk or a discussion in front of a dry erase board. Write out your bunt coverages, go over relays and double cuts, maybe your first and third plays. Here's an example of a plan I might use for my 10U team.
So for my team in the off season, what I would do is this. If I had a practice from 6 to 7:30, I would get them there about 15 minutes early. I would start at 5:45, have them there doing jumping jacks or jump rope, some kind of thing to get their body going, but get their blood flowing. I'll do some stretches as well. At 6 o'clock, we would have 2 groups. For 5 minutes, we might have a pre-practice discussion so we can discuss what we're going to do and how to focus. Group 1 will do tee work and fielding work. Have a T1 where it's just normal. T number 2 will be like a top hand, bottom hand drill. After that, they'll go into ground balls where they'll do a forehand, backhand, and then some short hops and tags as well. Group 2 will be strength training for the first 20 minutes of practice. After that, we'll do 10 minutes of speed drills and 10 minutes of mobility. At 7:30, we'll have a chalk talk and talk about bunt plays and discuss what our coverages are going to be in different situations.
In the preseason, we need to amp up our efforts on getting game ready. If If you were taking a break from throwing, the break's over. It's time to go to work. Those doing kid pitch have got to start throwing bullpens. Be sure to follow a throwing program to get the arms back in shape by your first game. I would throw a 15-pitch flat ground bullpen the first week and add 5 pitches a week until the season starts. I'd go to the mound around 20 or 25 pitches. Other players have got to start throwing. Batting practice needs to be velocity and timing. All the fundamental work of a tee and a front toss, all that in the offseason was great, but now it's time to start getting game ready. Do live ABs as soon as the pitchers can handle it. You've got to get on the field as much as possible, having your fielders make game-like defensive plays and game-like throws. If you have certain coverages or first and third plays, it's time to put those to work as well. Here's a plan I would use for my 13U team.
For a 13U preseason practice, here's what I would do. If I had 6 to 7:30, I'd have the kids get there at 5:45. I'd have them do sprints, stretches, or bands, whatever they have. And then from 6 to 6:15, we do catch play, warm up. 6:15 to 6:30, I'll do ground balls and PFP. At 6:30 to 6:40, we'll do fly balls. At 6:40, we'll start bullpens. We'll also work in some bunt coverages during the fly ball and in the bullpen section. At 7 o'clock, we'll start live ABs and continue the bullpens. And then 7:15, we'll work on base running. 7:30 to 7:35, we'll do a debriefing, tell the kids grades are important, thank them for practice, and that will call it a day.
For in-season, you have got to stay consistent with the basics. So ground balls, fly balls, PFP, pitcher fielding practice will need to be a staple of any practice you have at all ages. The goal would be to get as many reps as possible in a short time. So I typically put a first baseman at first base, and everybody else goes to an infield position, third base, shortstop, and second. I get 3 people to hit ground balls. One is hitting to third base, one is hitting to shortstop, and one is hitting to second base. Kids are rotating in at those positions. The shortstop will throw to first base. Everyone else just lobs the ball back into the hitter. After 3 minutes, we rotate positions, and I'll put a new first baseman in as well. After 3 rotations, that drill is over. Now we put all the first basemen at first base, and everyone else goes to the mound. We then hit balls to first base and have the pitcher covering and mix in some balls hit back at the pitcher as well. Work on them throwing the ball to first base and getting out at first base. For outfield drills, I have 2 people hitting or throwing fly balls, or 1 machine if possible. I put 2 lines in center field about 3 feet apart. One hitter is going to right center, and the line closest to right center gets that ball and quickly throws into second base. The other hitter hits a left center, and that line will retrieve the ball and throw to third base. Each turn, they rotate to the other line. After that, we will go into specific situations that need to be emphasized. Maybe we botched a rundown situation, or we missed our cutoff man several times, allowing a runner to advance base. The next part of the practice needs to have a plan to address those situations. If you don't have any situations like that, look back at your season goals. Is there something you wanted to emphasize but haven't? Is there a scenario you haven't had yet but think you might? That would be an option to address as well. Hitting is something that is needed, but planning for it is required. If you have 30 minutes of practice left and 10 kids to hit, you need to get a timer and cut it off at 2 or 3 minutes. That's probably 1 round of 10 to 12 swings. If you don't do it that way, the first 4 batters are going to get about 6 minutes, and you look up with 6 players left to hit, and you'll have 5 minutes of time left. If you can do live at-bats in the field, that would be great. I might consider starting the hitters off with a 1-1 count to speed up the process. If you're wanting a lot of reps in, get some other hitting tools, a tee or small balls, and set up a few stations. They can use those as they prepare their way for their turn to bat. No matter how many swings you get, it's not going to be enough. You've got to preach to your team that good hitters hit every day. But here's a plan I would use.
This in-season practice plan will look at an 8U team. We'll start the practice 6 o'clock, but we'll get there 15 minutes early and work on sprints and stretching. From 6 to 6:15, we'll do catch play. And then 6:15 to 6:30, we'll do ground balls and PFP, which is pitcher fielding practice. Even need that in 8U. 6:30 to 6:40, we'll do fly balls like we discussed earlier. From 6:40 to 7, the infield will hit and the outfield will throw to the right base. From 7 to 7:15, the outfield will hit and the infield will work on getting the lead runner. From 7:15 to 7:30, we'll work more on base running specifically. At 7:30 to 7:35, we'll have a quick debrief, and then the kids will be let go.
Hope this helps. If you find this content useful, please subscribe and consider following us on other platforms, all listed in the description. Thank you.